when the mighty Ghana Empire, once a beacon of gold and power, finally crumbled into dust. A profound darkness swept across West Africa. The void it left was not empty for long. From the smoldering ashes of fallen kingdoms, a new and terrifying power began to rise. This was the era of the Sooso kingdom, and its ruler was a man whose name would be whispered in fear for generations, King Sumanguru Kant. His ambition was a raging fire, and his quest for absolute control would inadvertently awaken the Mandinka people's greatest hero and set the stage for an epic confrontation that would reshape history. Between the years 1212–30 AD, Sumanguru, the sorcerer king of Sooso, cast a long and oppressive shadow over the land. With the Ghana Empire gone, the lucrative trans-Saharan trade routes, veins of gold, salt, and untold wealth were vulnerable. Sumanguru saw his opportunity and seized it with an iron fist. He wasn't just interested in commerce, he craved domination. His goal was to rebuild an empire on his own terms, an empire forged in fear and sustained by the suffering of others. The Mandinka people, proud and resilient, found themselves directly in his path. They became the primary targets of his brutal regime. Sumanguru's rule was a relentless nightmare. He imposed crippling taxes that bled the Mandinka communities dry, forcing them to surrender their hard-earned resources. He conscripted their strongest men into his armies, sending them to fight and die in wars that only served to expand his own power. Those who weren't sent to war were subjected to forced labor, their bodies and spirits broken under the weight of his tyrannical projects. Villages that had once thrived with culture and community were now filled with fear. The air grew heavy with the sorrow of lost sons, husbands, and brothers. The social fabric of Mandinka society, woven over centuries, began to tear under the strain. Imagine the scene: Sooso warriors, loyal only to their fearsome king, marching into a peaceful Mandinka village. The dust kicked up by their sandals chokes the air as families scatter in terror. The sounds of daily life are replaced by the clang of weapons and the cries of the oppressed. Sumanguru's conquest was not just a political or military takeover, it was a deep, psychological wound inflicted upon an entire people. Each trade route he captured, each village he subjugated, was another victory for his growing empire. But for the Mandinka, it was another link in the chain of their enslavement. Their independence was stripped away, their dignity trampled, their future stolen. But what drove this man? What was the source of Sumanguru Kant's insatiable hunger for power? Some legends paint him as a powerful sorcerer, a master of dark magic who was more demon than man. Historical accounts suggest he was a brilliant but ruthless strategist, emerging from the chaos of Ghana's collapse with a clear vision of conquest. He understood that controlling the trade routes was the key to controlling the region. He unified the Sooso people, who had been a smaller, less influential group, and channeled their energy into building a formidable military machine. His ambition was fueled by the vacuum of power left by Ghana, and he was determined to fill it. He saw the Mandinka not as people, but as resources to be exploited for his grand design. For the Mandinka, life became a daily struggle for survival. They were a people with a rich heritage, descendants of the founders of the Ghana Empire themselves. They tilled the soil under a merciless sun, their backs bent not just from labor but from the spiritual weight of oppression. They watched as their traditions were suppressed, and their leaders were humiliated or executed. The once strong bonds of kinship and community were tested as never before. Fear created division, and suspicion poisoned relationships. The question on everyone's lips was, how long can we endure this? A quiet, desperate whisper of rebellion began to circulate through the villages, carried on the wind like a spark seeking dry grass. By the year 1230, Sumanguru's power had reached its zenith. The Sooso kingdom was the undisputed master of the region. From his throne, adorned with the spoils of his conquests, Sumanguru must have felt invincible. His control over the trade routes was absolute. His armies feared throughout West Africa. But tyranny, like a fire, consumes everything, including itself. The very cruelty that had built his empire was also planting the seeds of its destruction. The oppression had become unbearable. The constant state of fear and sorrow had pushed the Mandinka people to a breaking point. An oppressed people can only be pushed so far before they push back. The peak of Sooso's power was tragically brief. This beacon of terror, which had burned so brightly and cruelly, began to flicker. The seeds of vengeance that Sumanguru had sown with every act of brutality began to sprout. The pain and suffering he had inflicted did not just break the Mandinka, it forged them. In the crucible of oppression, new sense of unity and purpose was being born. The memory of their lost freedom became a rallying cry. The desire for revenge became a sacred duty. The era of fragile tyranny was drawing to a close, not with a whimper, but with the promise of a coming storm. The stage was now set for the rise of a hero, a young, exiled prince who was prophesied to unite the Mandinka and challenge the Sorcerer King. This hero was Sundiata Keita. His story is one of the great epics of world history, a tale of exile, perseverance, and destiny. He would gather the scattered Mandinka clans, forge a powerful alliance, and confront Sumanguru Kant in a battle for the very soul of West Africa. The fall of the Sooso kingdom would be as dramatic and swift as its rise. The interconnected dreams that Sumanguru had shattered would be reborn in the vision of a new, unified Mandinka state, the Mali Empire. But even after Sumanguru's defeat and the fall of his kingdom, the echoes of his reign lingered. What became of the Sooso people? What lessons were learned from this dark chapter? Looking back, we see the story of Sooso not just as a tale of one tyrant's rise and fall, but as a timeless reminder of the human cost of unchecked ambition. It's a story about how oppression can inadvertently create the very forces that will overthrow it. From the ashes of the Ghana Empire rose the terror of Sooso, and from the suffering inflicted by Sooso rose the glory of Mali. It's a powerful cycle of history, one that continues to resonate today. So, as we look upon the ghosts of Sooso's fallen thrones, and the trade routes that once pulsed with gold and fear, we are left to wonder, what other secrets are buried in the sands of time? What untold stories of courage and heartache are still waiting to be discovered? History is never just a collection of dates and facts. It's a tapestry of human experience, woven with threads of triumph and tragedy. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. What are your thoughts on the rise and fall of the Sooso kingdom?